Hey guys, Spanners here. I have seen the F1 movie, and this is a very low spoiler review, and this is the Spanners conclusion of whether you should go and watch the F1 movie. Don't be upset if you're not interested in the F1 movie. You can just skip this. This isn't the midweek content for the week. This is going to be a bonus extra that you can just skip if you're not interested. Tomorrow, we've got Mike Caulfield and Matt Trumpets joining us for an Austria Strategy Preview. And then on Sunday, we've got Stuffy and Chris joining us for our Austrian Grand Prix review. Matt will be back for the preview of Silverstone. Then we've got the live show on Saturday in Milton Keynes, which you can still buy tickets for by clicking the show notes below. We're getting close to full. We can't fit that many people in there, but there is definitely still spaces. For now, we're going to do a live show and a quiz and go and hang out somewhere afterwards for some beers. But this is Spanners F1 movie review. Now, I am a cinema guy. I'm going to cut to the chase straight away as to whether you should see it or not. Right? I love cinema, and there was a time when I would see every single new cinematic release. Now, I'm not doing that. I'm a dad, and I have a job and a career. So I only go to the cinema now for the blockbuster experience. I'm not going to see a Saturday matinee of Dead Poets Society. I'm not going to sit there and be like, what interesting cinema. This is so important. And this is really groundbreaking. No, if I'm going to the cinema now, I need it to be like Jurassic Park. I need it to be Avengers Endgame. It's got to be like Tron. I think Tron was the last time I went to the IMAX. Or I would now add F1 movie to that. So if you are looking for that blockbuster popcorn experience and you are a cinema goer, then I would say, and you're an F1 fan, if you're listening to me, most likely you are, then I think it is a no-brainer to see this at the cinema. So I know for TV, things like Yellowstone I'm watching now, modern TVs are good and they're going to give you a great experience. But this movie, I think, is designed or has been filmed for the IMAX. So built for combat? I don't know. Built for IMAX? Definitely. And I went and watched it with my daughter yesterday, and it's just a great movie experience. So I'm going to have 1,000 things to nitpick at it. And I've read some really, really miserable reviews out there. But honestly, just as a pure popcorn movie, you're going to go in there, you're going to have a great time. It is, unfortunately, I would say, about 45 minutes too long. But that might be a me issue. So that might be on me. Honestly, I yearn for the days of 90-minute movies. I can stretch to a couple of hours. This weighs in at a very heavy 2 hours and 36 minutes. But since I was enjoying it, I guess it's okay. But for my daughter, it was a little bit of an endurance test. She was enjoying it, but for a 13-year-old that isn't into F1, she'd had her fill by the time we got to about an hour and 45 minutes. But yeah, I had read the reviews, and some of them, super just miserable and negative, pointing out all the little flaws in it. I don't think you're going to regret going and seeing the F1 movie. And obviously people have gone into it with a lot of negativity, but everyone I saw coming out that cinema was buzzing. So I would say for me, it's binary with movies. It's should you go and see this as a blockbuster entertainment or not? I think no brainer. F1 fan, go and see it. So some people were asking if it compared well to other motorsport movies. It's not similar to Rush. So someone was saying, is it better than Rush? But these are such different genres of movie that you can't compare them. Rush definitely has deeper characters, and you're focusing on those characters and you're watching them through this lifetime of a career. But the F1 movie is way, way cooler. It is just a cooler experience. You've got 6 months with these characters and they're flying around the world. There's just enough time to kind of get to know who they are, see some montages, and follow the action. So this is definitely an action movie, first and foremost. So go into that same kind of vibe that you'd be going to see Top Gun Maverick. But yeah, it doesn't have that character development of Rush. It's not a drama like Ferrari. So both Rush and Ferrari, they were developing the characters, they were telling the story of these people. And then when the action had to come into play, they just about got away with it in Rush. It was awful in the Ferrari movie with Adam Driver. But here, no. this is, right, here's the thing you have to remember when you're comparing it to things like Gran Turismo that came out a couple of years ago, where Gran Turismo was ambitious, but it lacked maybe the budget and it lacked the time to spend on it. Let's be absolutely clear here. F1 the movie is a top-tier, AAA Hollywood blockbuster. I don't think anyone's getting an Oscar, but this is a proper cinema movie. So, I will go through the plot checklist. So, lovable broken lone wolf brings fresh life to a stagnant team. Check. Does he find meaning beyond himself and a deeper purpose? Yep. Check. Initial success building to a point where it's all going quite well and then suddenly goes really wrong, and then the final act is recovering from that and beyond. Yup. Check. And initial angry and combative love interest. Yeah. Check. Hello to the TikTok live chat. I'm just streaming this on TikTok today, just for fun. Ewan says, was it as scripted as the Abu Dhabi 2021? Fair enough. It was, of course, all scripted. Very little improv in the F1 movie. Although I think, actually, one of the driver interactions, of which there are a few with the real-world drivers, I think that was off the cuff. And the F1 driver in question just decided to do a thing, and they kept it in on the movie. So, yeah, let's start with the action. I think the action was incredible. There's a few fears going into a racing movie with F1, and the trailers didn't help. So there was the whole built for combat, and then there was who said anything about safe, and those remained in the movie. Although they kind of did make sense. They in world, in universe, it made sense. It had a little bit of an air of Palpatine somehow returned, but it's not as bad as what you thought it was going to be from the trailer. They didn't do any of the downshift and press the pedal harder. Thank goodness. So this is, I would say, the number one cool thing about this movie, which you would expect when it's got producers like Lewis Hamilton on board. The number one great thing about the action is that the racing is proper. So there are some proper overtakes right from the very beginning. And I don't think this is any kind of spoiler. There's lots of racing action. There's lots of crashes. Everyone overtakes everyone. Okay. So at various points, everyone gets overtaken. But it starts off with him racing the Daytona 500 in sports cars, in GT cars. And he's fighting to get into the lead. And it's an oval and infield. So it's a part oval, part infield. They don't just downshift, press the pedal harder, and breeze past. They're in the slipstream. They're doing proper overtakes. And then the final overtake is like a good racing maneuver. It's something we've seen in Formula One. It's something you've seen in racing. You're pushing the other driver to the limit, and you make them make a mistake, and then you capitalize on it. And you go, wow, this is great. And right from the beginning, the action in the GT car was brilliant. So you felt completely immersed in it. Proper racing, proper overtakes. You captured that endurance, team spirit. All very realistic. And I think for a guy in his 50s to be in that kind of environment, yeah, it's fine. And then, of course, the whole thing starts of, right, now you need to come to F1 to save Apex GP. That's all in the trailers as well. And so the biggest issue I think a lot of people had was the age. So if I'm going to look up Brad Pitt's age as I say this, I think he's 60 or 59, 61 years old. Okay. So obviously when he started that project, he'll have been like 59. So it is incredibly unrealistic that a driver of 61 years old, in fact, how old is Martin Brundle? Because that would have been the era, wouldn't it? It looks like I can't spell. Martin Brundle, age. Yeah, Martin Brundle is 66. So they had Sonny Hayes racing in that era. So, he was racing the likes of Senna. He said he was a young driver when Senna was in, and a young driver, with Prost and all that kind of stuff. And you go, if they had just chosen 15 years into the future and said, he's 48. Yeah, cheers, Mark. So Mark says he might be 61, but he easily passes for a man in his late 50s. Okay, that wasn't as useful a comment as I thought it was going to be. If they'd have said he's 48, right, you'd have looked on screen and go, well, you look a little old for 48, but you're Brad Pitt and you're a unit and you're extremely fit. So you obviously look like an athlete. So that's fine. Because some 47-year-olds or 48-year-olds maybe they look a bit older and he's just one of them. And even then, 48 would be straining the reality to get back into an F1 car. But you kind of go, well, that's not that much older than Fernando Alonso. I think that all passes if they had just pitched it at being younger. Why not say, I was driving with the likes of Giancarlo Fisichella, that kind of era, and maybe that would have worked better. But to be honest, because he's a good-looking guy and because he's in shape and he looks athletic, you do kind of park reality at the door a little bit. So all the way through, obviously, it's make-believe. And in Hollywood, people tend to play a bit older, don't they? So that you've got a dad with a new baby, and the dad with a new baby is always like in his 40s or 50s, because when everyone thinks of a dad, they think of a middle-aged guy, a dad. But really, when you have your kids at first, you're a pup. So I don't think that affected the movie as much as I thought it was going to be. As much as I thought it was going to. The big test for them really is, how does the action and the strategy come across? And they had to use some kind of tactic. So in The Mighty Ducks, you had the slap shot where he puts it on the edge and then slaps it. And that was his big move. I don't remember that in the NHL SNES hockey game. I don't remember that. I don't think I've ever seen it on telly. I don't know if a pro's ever done that, but that was his special trick. And I'm sure to people who actually watch hockey, they're like screaming, going, that's a ridiculous thing to do. Or Ted Lasso, when they're doing the tactics. Well, what special tactics can we do? Oh, okay, let's do a thing no one else has ever thought of. Let's just total football. Let's just football more. Yeah, let's football more. That'll win. So there is a lot of that with the tactics, because the tactics they use are adjacent to reality. They're very close to things that are real-ish. They're truthy-ish. They're the kind of things that if you just come into the sport and you go, well, why don't they just do that? That would work. Oh, and then you learn a bit and you go, oh, no, that wouldn't work for a bunch of really boring reasons. So you go, all right, well, they are aiming this to a very broad audience. So most people won't realize that the tactics they're using won't work. I'll just give one example, because we're keeping it low spoiler. But one example is the young driver played by, oh my goodness, why? Right. Sitting here. I don't know. I'm not the kind of notes in front of me kind of person. It's Sonny Hayes and Joshua Pierce, played by Damson Idris. Okay, so Joshua Pierce is out on track and takes advantage of safety cars by staying out, right? So track position. Obviously, that works wonders at Monaco, or Singapore, but also everybody else would do that. Everyone would be erring to the side of track position, whereas he's the only one to have thought of it in this position. And also, it's a track where the fresher tyres would have just absolutely rinsed past him. Now, they did do a good job of talking about tyre wear, because it's really important. So if your tyres are gone, and you can't compete. So they got that across pretty well. But they would have these kind of real oddball tactics where you go, no one else has thought of it. We're so clever. And I think if you're not watching F1, that tracks. And I think that's perfectly fine. You don't have to invent brand new aspects of Formula One to make it entertaining. It was just truth adjacent enough that you could get into the plot. We get the idea. They're doing something outrageous and really clever because he's a big kind of strategy guy. But the alternative to that would be just the race engineer going, all right, Sonny, can we just tyre save into turns 3 and 8 and maintain 1 minute and 35.5 seconds? And then for one lap, okay, pit now to cover off the undercut from behind. And then that's it. So obviously that wouldn't be that interesting. And that's what a lot of races are. GG. Yeah, obviously people on the TikTok are joining, so there might be some repetition here. Could you get past the 60-year-old coming back to F1? I think I'm going to enjoy it regardless. Yes, I absolutely did get past it. It didn't take me long. And sometimes a film tells you what to think, and you have to go, oh, okay. It's like sci-fi. Sci-fi can break a couple of laws of physics, and I don't mind. So if they say, in this universe, you can travel 10 times the speed of light, and that's fine. That's a rule. And in Star Trek, the speed limit is 9.9 until it was a massive plot point that they broke the 9.9 barrier. Okay, once that is an in-universe rule, I don't mind. So in this universe, Brad Pitt, without a super license, it has to be said, without a super license, manages to swan back in. He can join a race at the last minute. He can get on pace without any in-season testing. Yes, absolutely, I could get past it. I think very few actors would be able to do that. So there's very few 61-year-olds that would be able to come in and do that. But, Brad Pitt is Brad Pitt. He is something of a phenomenon in acting in general. So I think, is Tom Cruise the same age? Hang on, let's have a look. How old is Tom Cruise? So Tom Cruise, for age, is 62, so only 1 year older than Brad Pitt. I don't think Tom Cruise, how he looks in the Mission Impossible films, would fit in. And I think Brad Pitt, just about gets away with it. So the tactics and the strategies they use, their whole thing is, they're the underdogs and they're having to do something different. And it's a sporting trope as old as time. And this film does lean on a lot of sporting tropes and probably relies on the fact that you've seen other movies, so the beats it's going to hit in general. It's just an enjoyable way to spend the time. It's like I said, it's not got that character development of Rush. I don't think it's trying to. I don't think it's trying to do an overly complicated plot. It's a very, very classic sports movie. Do feel free in the chat to throw any questions and comments in as we go. Like I say, I am recording it as a podcast episode, but fairly easy breezy. We all know that the Spanners solo shows are not canon. They're not part of Missed Apex canon. Don't worry. So they do action. They do crazy tactics. Sonny Hayes is a maverick, so I will say that. Sonny Hayes is an absolute weapon and is celebrated for it. But if he was doing that for real on track, he's getting DQ'd all over the place. Are they going to start on hards to go long and hope for a safety car? There's loads of tactics like that where they come up with the different strategies. So you know how I always get really kind of annoyed at, I think Hamilton and Russell have both got that bug where they go, let's just do the different thing. They won't be expecting this. Let's zig while all the others zag. The kind of Jensen Button, should I go on to intermediates or stay out on slicks? And 1 in 10 times it comes off. And then you go, you look like a genius on those occasions. It's a lot of that. But again, that's a classic sports trope as well. Hello, G-Spin. Have they managed to recreate the action shots in a believable way? Absolutely. That is the next thing that I was going to talk about. I think the action is spectacular. So there's a lot of shots with, the real drivers driving. And unfortunately, when Brad Pitt puts their helmet on, I suffer with the same thing. I don't see if you're going to see on TikTok. I've got far too wide a head for European racing helmets. And apparently that's a whole thing. The circumference of the middle of my head is quite large and like the equator of my face. And so my cheeks get shoved up. And obviously that doesn't help with age looks. There's nothing wrong with being 61 and having a 61-year-old face. But in the helmet, squishing up his 61-year-old cheeks, that's a moment where you go, ooh. That's why you have tinted visors, Brad. But, you can see their hand movements on the wheels because it doesn't quite look like a real racing driver. It looks like a dramatized version of what an actor doing racing driver movements might look like, which is fine as well because it's much more exciting. It's much more responsive. A lot of the time in these hybrid cars now, the cornering looks very, very smooth. Here, they're fighting the car a lot more. It's much more like a 90s attack on the steering wheel. John asks, most importantly, will my non-F1 fan wife tolerate me taking her? The length is an issue. The length of the movie is an issue for this. It's what my 13-year-old daughter struggled with. It weighs in at 2 hours and 36 minutes. There's an app called RunP, and it tells you when is a good time in a movie to take a break. But I missed a montage because I needed to go to the bathroom. I ended up getting myself a beer. But there was once a montage starts, you go, okay, I get it. Even Rocky had a montage. So, they're going to show a little bit of an improvement. They're going to get slightly better in the sim. All very kind of classic Rocky stuff. I did choose that moment. And I came back, asked my daughter, like, okay, how much have I missed? And they're like, oh, the montage just happened and now they're at this Grand Prix. And the fact that she said that, I knew exactly what she meant because, sporting montages are sporting montages. Honestly, I think it is the length. if you can sell that in advance and say, yeah, it's something that you can relax into, there's going to be enough action. I have to say, there isn't like a big period where they get bogged down in plot or character development. And it kind of works in their advantage because you can tell when the big blockbuster movies, they run out of budget and then maybe they've got a screen time that they're meant to hit. So people buy more popcorn, but they have the big action sequence at the beginning. There's so much build up that you go, oh, okay, I've kind of forgotten what the action was. Okay, now they go back into the war zone. Then they have like an hour of planning things and character development, and then they have to go and punch the bad guy at the end. This doesn't really have that. It's action pretty much all the way through. They've got 9 races. Not spoilers again. This is right at the beginning. They've got 9 Grand Prix at the end of the season to win a race, and you're just following that calendar through. The characters change. There's plot beats, but it is thing happens, next race. Then this happens. The slight character development, next race, and it is action. Like I didn't feel the time in the way that you do with some, like an Avengers movies. They always have like an hour before the final act where nothing happens. Not too much time on post-race stewarding discussions. No, it doesn't really get bogged down. This is the thing. A lot of the people were complaining about the paper-thin plot, but also it doesn't get really bogged down in the plot. You're there to see the action. You're there to wonder whether the plan works. You're there to see what twists happen. And obviously a couple of really big things go wrong. And then the final act is, oh, the real victory was the friends we made along the way. Or hooray, we did the thing we were trying to do. So, honestly, I could tell you which way that goes. And I don't think it would spoil the movie or the experience for you at all. But apparently there is a sequel, potentially. So there's not no sequel. There is discussions, it says. So where did I get up to before I was brilliantly interrupted by the live chat? Yeah, okay, so here's realism versus... Oh, actually, the question was, how did the action scenes come across? That's where I was there, wasn't I? Yeah, so... It is, yeah, you're really in the car, especially in the IMAX, which is why I'm thinking watch it in the IMAX. I didn't notice that they were Formula 2 cars dolled up to be Formula 1 cars with the halos and stuff on them. That didn't affect me. I think part of me looked at that and went, okay, it's a cinema version of a F1 car. Then when they cut to the real cars, like if they were looking on the onboard, you go, oh, wow, that's a real Formula 1 car. But they were never really on screen. I don't know. They were on screen together, but it wasn't jarring. The only time it was noticeable was when they were in the fake F1 car and then they were looking off board and they could see, say, like Leclerc or Sainz going off track. And you go, oh, wow, no, that's a beast of a car. Because I think it's just a size difference and an impressiveness machine difference. But there were very few times that was an issue. Like I never dwelt on it. And when they were racing wheel to wheel, I actually thought it was pretty good. I totally believed he was fighting Verstappen. I totally believed he was fighting Hamilton. And actually, I'll say the way they do it is like a computer game. They use the real F1 drivers really well. So that while they're struggling, they're fighting with the likes of Tsunoda, Gasly, Magnussen, and it's actually a real thrill. They have this one bit of action with an F1 driver, and you go, oh, yep, that's how that would have gone down. That's how it would have gone down, racing that driver. And there's a mix of the F1 drivers. Yeah, they get mugged, they get overtaken, but then they fight back, and they're really. The racing part of them is fleshed out. It's like, yeah, you have to go and beat Gasly, and then you have to maintain that lead, or he's going to come back at you. And then the top guys, you have Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, Leclerc, Sainz, at the top end of the field. They're all like levels of boss on a computer game, and I think it's done brilliantly. I think it's absolutely... You don't hear from them on track, but I know Christina felt like they were a little bit like extras in the background. I felt like them in the car, given the fact that it was a real name, was interesting. And I don't think it would have been the same if it was like, oh, it's Pedro Rodriguez in the Simtech car. I don't think it would have been the same. The fact that it was really trying to get past Kevin Magnussen I thought was fantastic. The racing itself was enjoyable too. They obviously created scenarios because now F1 is a lot of set up for the DRS pass and outbrake them into the corner. There was a lot of okay. I'll say it. There was a Zonta moment. I think those of you who know your history with Mika Hakkinen versus Schumacher double overtake or either side of Zonta going down the Kemmel straight. There's loads of little moments where I don't obviously not going to sit here and spoil them all, but there's loads of little moments where you go, oh yeah, that's Hamilton Rosberg 2014 Belgium Grand Prix. So there's loads and loads of stuff like that, Easter eggs for the F1 fans, and I think that's our reward for forgiving the fantasy tactics. Honestly, yeah, the racing stuff. It was. I don't know what more they could have done without it being boring. So any more realistic and it's boring. Any less realistic and it's crazy, stupid fantasy stuff and it's fast and furious. I think the balance was honestly just about right. A lot of crashes, which, those crashes are fun. There's a season's worth of crashes in there. So it does seem like, oh no, they're always crashing. These guys, they can't keep it on track. But, every driver's going to have a couple of little incidents throughout the season. It was great. And all the crashes were like, yep, that's how crashes happen in F1. No, I was really pleased. I was really pleased with all of that. So, yeah, the bad guys, I've gone through that. Okay, so I could do things to forgive. Done plot checklist. I don't want to nitpick too much and get into because it will make it sound like I don't like the movie when I go through the list of things that I want to forgive or that you need to forgive or that I didn't like. But I will say at this point, I honestly think as a cinema experience, we're talking like 8, 9 out of 10. Not sure what more they could have done. Like if you really want a deep plot, that's not going to appeal to you. But you can go and see a different film. Someone else will make a F1 film where you're following the life of I don't know, Kimi Antonelli from the beginning to his quadruple championships. I didn't want that out of this movie. I wanted Top Gun in race cars. There was a couple of reviews about the depiction of women in the movie. Now, I'm not a woman's, so my opinion, I guess, counts for less on that. But I saw some scathing reviews that the women in this movie are depicted poorly. So I'll just push back on that a little bit. My 13-year-old, who's normally the first to get upset with things like that, didn't pick up on any of that and was really happy with how the women were portrayed in the movie. So there was one article that was saying basically all the women are bad at their jobs, and they're just there to support Brad Pitt or whatever. And of course, there's a love interest in there. So, I mean, I'll address that. There was one female character who, to be honest, it didn't have to be a female character at all. It was just a young member of the team made a mistake and then locked in and got really good at their job. And that's the whole plot point. That's the whole plot point. And I'm not really sure why people got so upset about that because, again, that's a very common part. If you look at Ted Lasso, there's lots of examples of male soccer players in that exact same scenario. Or Yellowstone, Jimmy from Yellowstone. Oh, he's rubbish at first, but then he becomes like, brilliant cowboy. He's a great cowhand. He's old Jimmy from Yellowstone Jimmy, they call him. So the main issue is around the technical lead, and they're at the bottom of the grid team in and I don't often swear, but it's from a movie. It was a callback to the Rush movie, isn't it? Where Lauda, the character, Niki Lauda's character there says, this is a shitbox. They said, you cannot call it a shitbox, it's a Ferrari. And he just goes, like shrugs his shoulders. Yes, I can. So they described it as that, but it's very normal for a bottom of the grid team to have a rubbish car with limited resources. And so Brad Pitt suggests a change. We should do it why don't we do it like this? And the thing he describes to do is like if teams could solve it, they would. And it's like the most complicated thing, which he goes, well, we should just do this. And then, several scenes later, she manages it. And so she fixes it. And you go, well, that's pretty good. Oh, Mark, you're scaring me, saying, has it frozen? Somebody say if it has. Sorry, podcast listeners, I probably won't sit and edit this out. No, Mark, it's just you. I can see it on the stream. Oh, right. I haven't got a live producer. You've thrown me right off there, Mark. Yeah. So she does it. She does the brilliant thing and is brilliant. And then, like, there's a feud in the team and she just sorts it out brilliantly with brilliant management. And then, yeah, after that, yeah, she looks at herself and looks in the mirror and then looks around and goes, yeah, I'm going to get me some Sunny Hayes. But like, I don't think that's an issue that they hooked up or there was a romance. And I think when you watch it, I think you'll see that people have gotten the knickers in a twist about it a little bit too much. It is as simple as they get closer over a period of time and they're two attractive single people. And the number one factor in who humans choose to hook up with is proximity. You know, colleagues are literally boinking all the time in workplaces around the world. Proximity is a bigger factor than looks, than preferences of height, of lifestyles, of political affiliation. Being geolocated near someone is a much better deciding factor as whether you'll end up having a relationship. I honestly don't think there's too much to that or it takes anything away from the plot. And it's also Hollywood. Of course, the racing driver has a romance. Of course, the main guy ends up having a romance, and of course the talented woman has a frosty reception at first, and then ends. It's all very, very, very standard. So I'm going to push back on that there was some problem with how the women were depicted in the movies. It definitely doesn't pass the Bechdel test. That's fair. There were no scenes of women talking to each other without men about things that weren't men. So yes, it definitely failed that. Things to forgive then. I'm probably going to end on that. How long have I been waffling on for now? Oh, God, way longer than I meant to. Sorry. Way longer than I meant to. It was just meant to be a little jump in. So, things to forgive. Brad Pitt's age. Yeah, all right. Poker. No, if you're a poker player, prepare to be disappointed in the same way that every single film that uses poker disappoints you. Oh, my goodness. Like Casino. In fact, that's a good example. Do you know the poker scene in Casino Royale? It's awful, terrible. But if you're not a poker player, I imagine that plays quite well. But also you kind of look at that hand and go, all right, that hand's never going to come up. And like, you don't base the whole of the evening on the one spectacular hand. You know, poker's quite a long game. So yeah, poker. This is a big one. So apart from the time, it's too long. It is just too long. And apparently loads of plots were left on the cutting room floor. So I reckon there's a cut of this somewhere that's 4 hours long, right? So the comms. Now, it was great having Crofty and Martin Brundle as the voices. I have a personal thing that I think you should never hear the commentators as if it's on TV. So I don't know if that's like a personal thing. You should always hear them in the background or over the tannoy, or someone's got the radio on, and the characters are the ones listening to the commentary, right? And the characters are the ones hearing the commentary somehow, not the commentators are talking directly to me in the audience. And I was like, oh, I want to hear it on the radio. I just want to hear it in the background or accidental. And then for the final, I would say, not being spoilery here really, but it turned into the commentary doing all the exposition for the film. So it turned out it was the commentators telling you what was happening. And, if this thing happens next, that will mean that this plot point has been achieved. So possibly too much of that, but it was super authentic for it to be David Croft and Martin Brundle, and also to have Will Buxton. I know he's left F1 now, but to have Will Buxton be there as the camera, talking to camera. See, that was it. Yeah, Will Buxton wasn't talking to the screen, to us. Yeah, he was talking to a camera, and we were seeing that happen accidentally. So we should have overheard the comms. We should have walked past Will Buxton doing his things like that. But yeah, it's very cool that those guys were there, and apparently Lewis Hamilton was instrumental in hooking them up with David Croft for him to be involved. So let me see. There's a couple of things that really stressed me out. The having a tantrum in the pit stop because he didn't get the tires he wanted, instead of complaining about it afterwards. And so time in movies is sometimes an issue. So there are a lot of times we go, the amount of time we're spending on this, it has got you out. You're out of the race now. Yeah, it's good. I like how dramatic it is. And you're all like, what decision are you going to make? But it's too late. That decision has now had gone. The fact that he jumped in mid-season, he had one incomplete lap of testing before embarking on a nine race campaign. But to be honest, there's not too much to get upset about. And I think, yeah, I went in there expecting it not to be a documentary. But honestly, I don't think that's as important as people think. I think if you just go there going, I'm going to watch a movie, it's a good movie. It looks spectacular. No super license. Yeah, I think we mentioned that as well. Oh, okay. Some really good cameos from team principals. So there wasn't a lot of the real F1 people involved in it. So you didn't hear from the drivers, really. The drivers didn't come up and have a conversation. So if you're expecting that, if you're expecting Lando to come up and go, hey, great race, Sonny, really pleased to have you part of the paddock, that didn't happen. But there was a scene with the team principals which really worked, and it was great. As soon as I saw them pop up on screen, I went, oh, this isn't gonna work. Nailed it. It was brilliant. Loads of really recognizable Easter eggs and events for F1 fans to get their teeth into. And yeah, overall, yep, I absolutely enjoyed it. So I'm going to leave it there because I think I'm as non-spoilery as I can get. And honestly, if I had sat here and told you all the plot points, how it ended, what happened in individual races, it wouldn't really take away from the experience of watching it, because I personally don't think the plot is the point. I don't think any of how it's almost, I wonder if in the script they went, some tactics happen as they were going through, and then somebody had to come in afterwards and say some tactics. Okay, right. How could he possibly go up the grid now? What's a way for him to get up the grid? Matt will be unhappy that Pirelli went about 8 steps softer on all the tyres. So with F1, of course, apart from the racing action, pit stops are a big part of where something can happen. So I think each race had about 8 pit stops for there to be a dramatic change. So yeah, that's it from me. That's all from me. And I think even if you were to go there to, I'm going to swear again, but I think it's a proper phrase. Even if you were going there to shit watch it, I think that would still be a good time. If you went in there with the attitude of, let's find as many things to crap on as we possibly can, I think that's fine. And then you'll end up accidentally enjoying it in the background. All right. Well, I will see you. Where will we see you? We will see you next tomorrow. We'll be on YouTube for a live stream with Mike and Matt, and then we'll have our race review at sort of normal evening-y time on Sunday. Until I see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast.